comics are stupid.
No Harry Potter movie is good.
And you're like, give me the Snyder Cut. Oh, sorry, just walk in front of you here. I'm gonna put my popcorn down. Oh, sorry, gotta put this here.
Universal needs to sue Sony.
Hey, I'm an idiot. I was fired from Fox. Let me go.
I'd like actually to see Venom just crush Spider-Man.
Hello, everyone. We're back with a bonus episode, you could call it, of this Hollywood in Canada series. We've got we've got a very special guest. We've got Matt Rorabeck. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're the host of like a podcast, multiple podcasts, 3 podcasts technically, right? And it's the anniversary of your kind of second version of this podcast starting. It's funny. I was watching your Pitch Perfect review from your old thing this morning.
Oh my God, really?
It's so funny.
That's hilarious. That's so funny. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I didn't even plan for this to be like, oh, it's the 4th birthday of my podcast. Let me come on here and talk about it. But like, it just kind of worked out perfectly. Yeah, I host 2 movie podcasts here in Toronto called the Untitled Movie Podcast and Untitled Movie Reviews. And the other show you were talking about, that might have been Movie Monarchy, or I used to run a website called Movie Night when I first was getting started about 10 years ago. And that Pitch Perfect review might have just been Eric and I just trying to do something on YouTube. And that was a long ass time ago, but I could only imagine how bad that was. But thank you for watching that.
It popped up my YouTube recommended, and I was like, hey, why not watch this?
Oh my God. I got to go scrub those from the internet. I know there's like a Skyfall one up there too. And a couple other old ones from TIFF. There's a Men Who Stare at Goats review that I didn't even, it was like I got interviewed by CBC, and I still have adult acne, but I had like teenage acne of just like all over my face of me. I have no idea what I said, but anyways, you guys can go look that up too.
It's all good content though, even when you're standing with a Cineplex sign behind you and talking about how great
Yeah.
is. So, you know.
The first one, at least. People like it. I didn't see the third one.
What?
Did I need to see the third one?
I didn't see the third one.
Okay.
I watched the first 2. I love the first 2, but I just never watched the third one.
There was a 3, right?
Yeah, there was.
Am I
There
imagining
was.
things?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I just think a lot of people just kind of ignore it. But anyways, how did this start? How did this journey into becoming the most despised by filmmakers? Although you're good, so it's different. But like, you know, the general profession is sometimes looked down upon by people who make movies.
As a film critic, yeah. I mean, everyone, it's so funny. Like, I get it a lot from my family and other people who aren't necessarily in those circles and things like that are like, oh, you hate everything, or you're an asshole or something like that when you watch movies. But it's just like, I don't think that that's necessarily, true. I just think film critics watch so much, and, our job is to put our opinion out there that like and the internet is so negative, and people do focus on negativity so often that I feel like that kind of cliche of film critics are, jerks and filmmakers don't like them and things like that. It pops up a lot, but I do it because I love it, man. And, I don't really make that much money doing it. I have in the past for different freelance things and different jobs, and it's helped me in my other career, working in writing and marketing and things like that. But it came from a passion of just like loving movies, which I think most film critics get into this. I think there's this weird thing of like, there are those kind of contrarian film critics or those intellectual film critics. There's the fan film critics. There's a whole bunch of different varieties of them. But I think everyone gets into it because they really love it. Even if you become one of those contrarian, cynical old guys or something like that tends to hate more than they like, I think they still got into this because they love it. And, I've been doing this for over a decade now, which sounds wild. Like I'm 33, and, I went to school at Fanshawe in London for film studies. I originally wanted to be a filmmaker. I did media arts I was obsessed with in high school and made some really awful, high school student films. I made a film called Guns of Glory, which was like a workout video satire that was on YouTube for a while. I made like a Pokemon. No, I wish it was, because like I I've been trying to find it, and I think half of it was still on YouTube and half of it wasn't, because we had to upload it in two parts, because back then YouTube I think had a max of like 10 minutes or something like that. That's I'm not that old, but I'm at that YouTube old. And I did a Pokemon like animated video in high school that like I remember had over 100,000 views on YouTube, and that was like 10 years ago, and I deleted it because it also different time. There was probably some like questionable like humor in it and stuff like that, where that doesn't exist anymore either. But I wanted to make movies first because like my uncle is a cinematographer. He kind of got me into it. Like I hung out with him a lot when I was a kid. He would bring me on like TV sets and things like that, and I worked with him a little bit behind the scenes. Like he gave me some of my first jobs in the industry, working on like Discovery Channel TV shows and at CTV and on the Sex Files, if anyone knows what that is. Like I was way too young to work on that. I'd have to like leave the room when they would shoot certain scenes. And I worked on a show called I Could Do That, and I worked behind the scenes, and I wanted to make movies. And then I realized like that might be an unrealistic goal. Like I was like, so few people make it as a film director that I don't know if that's a realistic goal. So what's the other thing I wanted to do is talk and write about movies. Was that realistic? Also, no. But I've done okay. And I went to school for film studies and film criticism and film history. I went to Fanshawe. After that, I worked a bit more with my uncle. And then I just decided I wanted to do my own stuff. Like I freelanced a bit, and I would pop around and do like, back then too, a lot of free work where people were like, it still happens, but it's like, I can't pay you, but you can write for me for exposure. And at that time, as a young, naive kid, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. And you would do that kind of stuff. And then I was like, wait, why don't I just do this for myself if I'm doing it for free? And started a website called Movie Night. And then, started to get Toronto, in the Toronto film scenes, and tried to, go to more like not press screenings at that time, but like promo screenings, those like Wednesday night free screenings. You'd win a contest or you'd beg someone for a pass or something like that. And then started writing about movies. And then I started a podcast 10 years ago called Movie Monarchy with Eric Marchin, who I still podcast with. And at that time he was, working for Rogers TV. He started when he was really young, like as like 16, doing film reviews for there. I met him at the Toronto Film Festival, started going to the film festival, started writing more, podcasting more, which then led to some more like freelance gigs. So I worked for Tribute Magazine. Does anyone remember Tribute Magazine? And tribute.ca, I think it's still around. That was kind of like my big break sort of thing, where I did a few interviews and stuff for Movie Night, but then Tribute wanted me to work the Toronto International Film Festival with them. So I worked in their suite and I did interviews that whole festival. So I did like 30 on-camera interviews throughout TIFF that year in 2013, which is the same film festival I met my wife, Nevis, at. So like it all comes back to movies. My whole life revolves around them. And, I just kept doing it. And even though I wouldn't make money or freelancing or finding a full-time, like well-paid position in film criticism is like very hard. Like, there are those guys who work for a newspaper or work for, and have those gigs forever. Or if you want to freelance, you really, really got to hustle, which I would do a little bit. But eventually I got into marketing. I worked at a streaming service called Show Me, if anyone remembers that, if you're Canadian. Worked in social media for a long time and used my writing skills I got from writing and stuff like that about movies, and used that into the entertainment kind of field. And then that went under, worked somewhere else, hated that, worked somewhere else at an agency, hated that. And then finally, eventually 4 years ago, got back into film criticism and podcasting is something that I just really loved. I loved talking about movies, and I just loved movies. So 4 years ago, I after shutting down Movie Night and Movie Monarchy, when I went into marketing, I started Untitled Movie Podcast with Eric Marchin, and we've been doing it ever since. It's kind of a passion project, a side thing. We've had moderate success on it. I've been accredited with film studios for the last, 7 or 10 years or something. And then like I do it because I love it. It's nice to cover film festivals. It's wonderful to talk to my best friend every week about movies. And then I still kind of do other work on the side, right? Like I could probably make a little bit of money off the show, but Eric and I both have our own things other than the podcast, and we're just like keeping it ad free and just do it because we love it. And that's kind of the Coles notes of me over the last 10 years. So I think you really get into this because you just love talking about movies, and sometimes you love criticizing movies, right? If they're not so great, it doesn't mean that you have permission to be a jerk or anything like that. But you see so much that you kind of have a good idea whatever your background is. Maybe it's more from film history and the technical side of things. Maybe it's more from the filmmaking side of things, performances. Everyone has their own angle. And I just take it as a movie lover. And I'm like, I try to be very personal with my criticism, my style, and just go, well, if you like the stuff that I like and you listen to me, then you probably know if you're going to like it. I don't try to get like too technical or things like that, and shout out to the people who do. But I do it because I love it, and I watch a lot of movies, and I try to just share that with people. And if they want to listen, awesome. If they don't, that's cool too. So that's me.
So kind of going back to that idea of film criticism, right? Because I mean, you could say moderate success, even though, you're one of the best film podcasts in Canada, but
the 8th, which is really, really funny. It's turned into a joke, sort of a joke intro, but it is kind of cool. We were on, I don't know who wrote the list, but it was like based on a bunch of different things. And being the 8th in Canada, it is cool, even if I joke about it.
So I think that's a little bit more than moderate. You got to give yourself a little bit more credit than moderate success, but
I'm very self-deprecating and I don't like attention and stuff like that, even though I obviously do. But anyways.
So what is film criticism? And I know that's a very open-ended, vague question, which you probably cannot give a concise answer to, but
I don't like, I think anyone, like everyone's a film critic, really. Like anyone who watches a movie and talks about it with their friends or their family or tweets about it or anything. Like I don't like this like gatekeeping thing of like you need to have gone to film school, or you need to have this deep knowledge of film. Like even if you're someone who's younger, who's maybe only watched, very recent stuff, or you were like, everything from 2010 onward, I've seen everything, but you have huge gaps before then. I'm like, sure, you can talk about movies. Like, I think it's such a personal thing. And the people that I've always really liked reading or listening to, it's someone that I connect to. It's not necessarily going like, oh, everything about movies, so I trust your opinion that way. Because sometimes that's, I don't know, you roll your eyes at those people too. But I just feel like, film criticism, especially in a professional sense too, I feel like has evolved, and, the rise of podcasts, and, I used to write about movies. Now I love talking about them. But I ultimately think it's just, if you have an opinion on a movie, and that might be like some people who are film critics kind of like would get mad at me for that. But like, I think to have a knowledge of movie, just watch a lot of movies and like fill in those gaps later. And even if you want to start writing or start podcasting, or you think you don't have the experience, or you didn't go to film school or anything like that, I'm like, that's BS. Like, just start doing it, start watching the stuff you enjoy, but then also expand your horizons and watch things that maybe you aren't necessarily interested in, but other people have said are great, or something that's old, or something foreign with subtitles or anything like that. Like, I just, I feel like anyone can get started in it. But, film criticism, I don't know, you started off like with that thing where I think it has this kind of bad vibe to it sometimes, unless you're like really into movies, and then you kind of get it, or you find the people that, align with your tastes and things like that. But it does have this, like, I think even using criticism in that thing, it sounds sort of negative, right? Like if you're criticizing something, it just starts with a negative. But To me, I even lately I've tried to focus more on being positive, and you know, it's my job sometimes to say when something's not so great or in my opinion. And I think it all comes down to it's people's opinions. Like I don't think there's an objective right or wrong when critiquing a movie. Like, and I think some people do. And for me, it's your opinion. Like, dude, even if you're backing it up with all these like facts and film school garbage and like all this stuff, it's not garbage. It's just like, obviously that's a way to approach it, but then don't poo-poo on someone that is going a different route and bringing in a different side of things. And maybe it's not backed with, you know, all these proof or anything like that, but it's ultimately, even with proof, it is your opinion. And that's what film criticism is. It's someone's opinion being put out there, and you find the people that you align with your opinion. And sometimes it's good to find people who don't and also listen to them or also read them, because even me, like, feel like when people, especially on the internet and things like there, when people are throwing opinions out, people can take that personally. Like if someone's opinion doesn't align with theirs, and you see a lot of people fighting about things on the internet when it's just people's opinions. And that's what I go back to, where I'm like, I don't know, like there's no objective right or wrong when talking about a movie. And I think all opinions are valid. And that's the kind of thing that I'd like to see more of just that understanding of like, you know, it's okay to like something. It's okay to not like something. It's okay to be something in the middle. Just don't be a jerk, and you can have that conversation with people. And it's kind of fun to debate that kind of stuff, as long as you do it in like a, you know, where people understand where both sides are coming from. And so film criticism for me, there's no objective right or wrong. It just goes back to, it's someone's opinion. And that might be, again, some people might not like that, but ultimately that's kind of how I view it.
Do you think we could clip that part and put it as the thing you have to watch it before you send a tweet? Like, can we do that?
I would love that. Like, I just for everyone. Like, and I you know, I'm guilty of it too. When I was younger, I remember when I was going through film school and things like that too, when like Avatar came out, and you want to be that, you know, at that time when I'm younger, I'm like, Avatar sucks. I need to tell everyone that Avatar sucks and it's making all this money. And, you know, I was, again, at that time being like, oh, it made a lot of money. I need to say it's bad. People liked it. I need to say it's bad. And it's not even like a conscious thing you're doing. You just, if you slightly disagreed with what the majority was, you needed to tell everyone and argue with them why the thing that they like is bad, which is just annoying. Don't do that.
That's why those darn Marvel movies are failing, because it's bad. See?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, it's fine to not like things. Just don't be a jerk about it. Like, you can put your opinion out there too. And even the people who like something also shouldn't be jerks back to the people who are saying that it's bad. But then also just don't go and like find people who are saying things that are good and just, you know, comment or tweet at them or go on their YouTube channel or something. Like, what is the point of that? Like, it's fine to like go, oh, that's interesting, I had a different view on the movie, like, this is my side of things. But like, it goes to anything. Like, relationships are the same way, right? It's just like how you approach it. And like, just don't immediately kind of get your guard up and like need to defend this thing. I'm like, you didn't make the thing. Like, it doesn't matter either way. Like, sure, it's a character you're attached to or a movie you really like, or, I mean, shout the things that you love shout from the rooftops for the things that you love, but like the things that you hate, like, or don't like, if you want to do it professionally, put your opinion out there. Even if you don't want to do it professionally, you can put your opinion out there. But like, I just try to tell everyone, like, and I'm guilty of it sometimes too, man. Like, and you know, the Mad Max Fury Road thing, like, that's like more of like a, people listening have no idea, but like, I think Mad Max Fury Road is fine, right? And then like, I'll do it as a bit to like, you know, to my friends to annoy them or something like that, or just tweet to kind of like poke the bear a little bit. But like, that, to me, I hope people understand the bit where like, I don't think it's a bad movie, and I wouldn't go find people who like Mad Max unless they're my friend and I'm just trying to mess with them and like be like, this is why it's actually bad. It's like, no. It's like anything I put out there, I've just learned now is like, I do this, I have a show where I talk about it. I'll tweet stuff like my opinions or whatever. But like if you want to know my more nuanced, opinion on something, I'm not going to argue with you. Like go listen to the episode of my podcast. And I hate being that guy too, but I'm like, I don't have the energy, man. Like I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to know my thoughts, there they are.
Wait, you don't have the time to spend all day on Twitter just arguing with people who don't agree with you?
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Coming.
And luckily it's not so bad for me. Like I don't know, I'm not big enough like some people to have people come at them. Like I could only imagine the people that have large YouTube channels and things like that, and you must just eventually just like ignore it. And I wouldn't even have the energy to like mute people or block people. But there's this weird negative kind of, and like even people who aren't movie people, like like I said, my family would make jokes of being like, they'll tell me something they really like, and then they ask me what I thought of it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. Like again, if someone asks me, I'm gonna tell you my opinion. But if my parents or sister say, oh, I watched this movie, Uncharted. My mom really liked Uncharted. And I'm like, here, Mom, here's why Uncharted's actually awful or like really bad. Like, it's just like, no. Or I'll say, I didn't really like it. And I try to kind of tone down my thoughts a little bit or something like that. And they go, oh, you don't like anything. And I'm like, that's not true. I'm like, I see like hundreds of movies a year, and the majority of them I like, or at least think are pretty decent. It's just that negativity kind of rises to the top, and that's like with everything. If you look at, and I love that to switch, but I don't think the internet is just going to magically change.
Never.
So you get more clicks or negative headlines, negative everything will just kind of be what people focus on, unfortunately, because like it's like if you had a bad meal at a restaurant, you're going to go on Google reviews or tweet it or whatever and be like, it was awful, the service was bad, whatever, I can't believe this, and tag the company or the airline or something like that. But if you have a good flight or a good meal or something you enjoy, you usually just move on and don't say anything, right? So my whole thing is just like, I don't know, try to put, it sounds corny, but like just talk about the things that you enjoy. Don't focus on the stuff that you don't. And even, with doing it professionally, when sometimes you watch something that you did not like, and I have to record a 30-minute podcast with Eric about it, but like we try to be not jerks about it and try to keep it professional of why we didn't like it. And sometimes you get into the joking around about something, or I never wanted to come off as mean-spirited, but
like things like how DC is a failure and can't do anything right, like that
sure.
kind of thing. Yeah, okay.
That's obvious though, right? Like that's just a lob ball. It's like, no, I know. Yeah, I think it's totally fine to be critical and to be not necessarily negative, but when people are doing something that you need to talk about, that's like, why are they doing it that way, or what is why do they cancel Batgirl or something like that? I don't necessarily think that's.
Well, that was just stupid. That's not even like being
yeah,
critical. That's just stupid.
It's not even exactly. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like it is a corny way of thinking about things, especially as a critic. But again, I take it as it's everyone's opinion, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I think that the people that I vibe with or listen to, even I don't really listen to many like other film like podcasts and things like that, because I try not to let it get in my head too much either, because like I do it myself. So I listen to a lot of video game podcasts, which there's a lot of negativity in the video game world too, right?
There's
but I think
in every world, like every aspect
that's true.
of life.
So I know. So I'm happy to be positive. I'm happy to be here doing this and talking about why I love doing it. And it is just one of those things of like, I love going to the movies. I love talking about movies. I love watching bad movies. I don't ever go, man, I wasted my time, even after I mean, sometimes. But I still like going to the movies and seeing something because I gave it a shot, right? Like, and even if you didn't like it or you hated it or thought it was awful, and it's okay to talk about that, but try to focus on the positive stuff. So
That's
not you particularly, but everyone.
I'm always positive. No, I'm not.
Good, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm not. So now you also cover the industry, beyond just reviews. You also just talk about the industry as a whole, and you talk about the news and stuff. So, like, what's that like, and how's that different, I guess, from when you review movies?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the same kind of thing. It's like I love the industry as much as the stuff that they produce, right? Like I've always been a person who likes analyzing like the thought process of things, or like
Or the lack of thought process?
yeah, exactly. Like I was a huge wrestling fan my whole life. I still kind of watch it here and there, but I always loved talking about, like I always knew it was fake even when I was young and stuff like that. But sorry to anyone who didn't know that. I just ruined that. But I loved the behind the scenes of it, and just like figuring out, why they would write these storylines or how I would do it better. And I think that's kind of how I approach things. In the news, for one thing, casting, trailers, things like that, like marketing kind of materials that are put out, sure. But like, I love analyzing like the business side of things in the ever changing kind of like landscape. Like, I think it's kind of fascinating, right? Like being 33, I remember a time before the internet, right? And like, I'm not that old, but like, I'm in that weird generation that like both remembers, like, obviously my parents and stuff do too, but they don't use the internet as much as maybe we do or something like that. But like, I remember it not really being a part of my life. I remember renting movies at Blockbuster. I remember all that, going to the theater and watching stuff on film, working at a movie theater and learning the projection on film, and like how that changed to digital and now streaming and all that kind of stuff. And it just like fascinates me, and the theatrical experience really fascinates me, and how like cinemas run and like, or don't run, again, not to focus on negative, but like, and how the presentation has changed or gotten worse, or how they're trying to find different ways to improve or get people to come in with different formats like 4DX or AVX or Dolby Cinema and stuff
More
like that.
gimmicks,
Like,
just take your money. Exactly.
exactly. And instead of just improving the normal experience, here's some other things that kind of will make you pay more money, which so I love focusing on that kind of stuff. And I think that's the stuff we talk about a lot, is like, how is streaming changing the industry, the streaming wars, like who's going to be left, and
Just
what
Disney.
are they greenlighting, like, yeah, how much
Disney.
money are they spending on things, and like Netflix fumbling, and will Netflix be here in 5 years? Will they get
I'm answering all these questions.
maybe 5, maybe 10? I don't think so either. And like, who's gonna buy who, all that kind of stuff, because we're in that age of like, yeah, Disney will just own everything.
Disney's just the answer to all the questions. Who's going to be around?
I
Disney.
know.
Who's going to buy everyone? Disney. Who's going to spend
I
all the
know,
money?
and-
Disney. It's just, that's the
And
answer.
even again, and it is both, I like, I grew up with Disney. I love going to Disney World. I love Marvel. I love Star Wars. They did buy all the things I loved as a kid, and they're doing that constantly. But like, it is one of those things where, competition is good, and you still want, you hate seeing studios get bought up by other studios and things like that. Like, even if, oh great, X-Men are now in the MCU, but you're like, okay, they had to buy a whole movie studio for that, and like that. A lot of people lose their jobs over those things, and there's all this weird business stuff that is kind of depressing, even though like, oh, the content, or I hate that word too, but I use it as kind of a joke. But yeah, it's, I just love talking about that as much as movies too. So like, we don't, our show, yeah, we have the 2 different shows. So the reviews literally just, we say bite-sized, but they go between 20 and an hour and a half. And then the main show where Eric and I talk about, it's just kind of like whatever we want to talk about. So it's like half the time, it's just like what interests me. It's again, it's not necessarily I need to give you the news every week. Like I wouldn't say people come to our show to like learn about the news, but you're more so of like, oh, what do Matt and Eric think about Disney buying everything? Or what do they think about, MGM going to Warner Brothers or something now instead of Universal or something like that. Like, that stuff does interest me, and like the casting and stuff like that, you can speculate and theorize, and even like, I even love figuring out like when movies will be released, or award season Eric's really into, and Eric is just like such a fountain of film knowledge. Like, and I think that's why we work really well together, is like, I kind of approach it from more of like the, like casual film fan. No, I'm very hardcore, but
I don't know if there's
I
anything
just
casual
differentiate.
about you.
No, not casual, but like I don't know how to word it properly. But Eric is like this. Like he knows everything about every movie. There's basically no gaps in his film
he's like
knowledge.
an encyclopedia, and you're like,
He is.
and you're like a normal person.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we approach it. So like Eric is that hardcore like cinephile, where I'm more like that person who just goes to the movies multiple times a week, loves it, has seen a ton of movies, and has a pretty solid knowledge of them. But my film history still has huge gaps, right? Like I don't call myself like a film historian or just like think I know everything about movies. It's like, no, I'm a guy who just really loves movies and loves the industry, and I feel like I read enough about it and see enough movies and know how even working in marketing and for a streaming service and things like that has helped me kind of understand how on the business side these things work or where these decisions come from. So I kind of bring that side of it and then come from that, that fan side of things. And then Eric comes from that encyclopedic cinephile knowledge of things. So it's like a good balance where we balance each other out, where like I'll make him watch Marvel movies and then like not make, he would watch them anyway, but like I care about it way more than he does. And then like he'll make me watch foreign films and like things like that, or expand my kind of, horizons and palette to some things where, maybe 10 years ago, I wasn't going to the theater to go see that stuff. I would only go see the big stuff. Right. And so, yeah, going back to the news thing, it's like, I don't approach it any differently. It's just, again, I think it goes back to just give your opinion on things and make sure you kind of know what you're talking about. I guess read a lot, like do your research and do your research enough. Like you don't necessarily have to research a specific news story you're going to talk about, but just kind of like, and even if you don't, just talk it out and figure it out together and look things up and things like that. But the theatrical experience is the thing that really I'm obsessed with. Like I would love to run a movie theater or something like that. Like I think it would be, I worked at Cineplex for 5 years or so or longer, and that was like 13 years ago. But I've always wanted to run a movie theater because I think it's fascinating, and I feel like we need more independent cinemas.
Some competition with Cineplex, please.
Yeah, exactly. So when you have monopolies like that, just like we're talking about with Disney and other studios and stuff like that, like the monopolies that are kind of taking over, like competition is a good thing. And when you only have like one company and then there's like Landmark and Rainbow and, you have a few smaller chains and stuff like that, there's just no competition. So, I'm obsessed with that and just wanting that experience to be special, because the way you can watch stuff at home now is like getting maybe not necessarily close depending on how much money you make. But it's still pretty good, right? Like watching something on my OLED TV in Dolby Atmos at home with no distractions. I can turn down all the lights. Like, sure, it's not a giant screen or anything, but like I can control that experience and it can be pretty good. And I think most people have something, not necessarily exactly that, but they can get a big screen TV and an okay sound bar and things like that. And then that experience is pretty solid. And then when you go to the theater, and I think this still very much is like, people don't necessarily pay attention as much as maybe you or I or Eric or someone like that who goes, well, the masking they don't do masking anymore. And people go, what the hell's masking? And I'm like, well, you see the black bars at the top of the screen. I'm like, I try to explain it to people and they're like, oh yeah. And like, they'll get annoyed with it after the fact, but I feel like there are all these slightly things and they take these little things away for cost savings or for whatever and introduce these other things. And I just wonder, I'm like, how do you make that experience special again? And just focusing on the presentation of it all, making sure the sound's good, making sure the projection's good, making sure that, people actually stop people from talking and texting in a movie and things like that. And
God's sake.
I don't know how you do that, because like just the teenagers running those places, like no offense, that like I was one of them, and I cared a lot, but they're getting paid like nothing, and
But it's not
why do
about
they
that,
want
though.
to
It's
go?
just about people having the decency. Oh my
Sure.
God, you know the amount of times, and I've ranted about this often, and every single, you know how many times there'd be someone who just like, taking their kids to the movie and it gets bored and turns on their phone and just starts texting?
Mm-hmm.
You know how much
Oh, I've been
I
there.
hate it so much, and I get so close to just telling them just leave.
Oh, I do, man. Like there's ways of doing it, right? Like again, going back to like the, I think it's okay to be critical, and it's okay to tell people that you shouldn't be doing this thing, or just to have respect for others and things like that. And it's like the wildest thing of like why you can't just shut off your phone for 2 hours, like or 2.5 tops, or put it on do not disturb. If you got to go look at it, leave the theater, or quickly look at it, put it away, see if you need to deal with it. Fine.
And if you need to deal with it, deal with it outside the theater, not inside the theater.
Exactly. And I've been there too many times because I am that person who will tell people, but I always just say like, try to not, you can approach it in a like, hey, stop doing this, but I always try to do it in like a polite way where you still add like a please and something like that. So
Even
then
though
that way
your mind
you
is
never
screaming and you don't want to.
Oh yeah. You're just like, hey, could you turn that off, please?
Yeah.
Like you always just kind of, you can be forceful in the way that you say it because you know that the person's in the wrong. Like objectively, there is an objective thing. You shouldn't be doing
They're
that.
bad. They should just
Yeah,
leave.
and so, and I've gotten in way too many things of just, and then you eventually it like breaks you down to a point where you're like, I can't get in a confrontation every time I go to the movies. Like I can't do it. Like I was, a guy in Whitby when first movie back after the pandemic, we went and saw Escape Room. I told this story on a review. There's a longer story, but a guy, his kids just running. Kids who are not old enough to see Escape Room. Or it might be a PG movie, but I forget. But they're running around the theater, crawling on the ground, crawling over seats, just like yelling. And I'm just like, I don't have the energy to do this. And then he just left this garbage everywhere. And after the movie, I said something to him, and he just like yelled, homophobic slurs at me.
What?
And I'm like, for no reason, because I had a colorful shirt on. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's great. We're back, baby. We're like back at the movies. So
Are people
I
worse
try
now?
to like
I've seen there'd be more people now who I've seen do stupid, rude things in the theater than I did pre-pandemic. I think people are worse. I think
Yeah.
people have just gotten worse.
I don't know if it's because we were all cooped up at home, or only like, the people who are, not nice, but like, are staying at home maybe, or that maybe they're not going to a mid-afternoon escape room movie or something like that. Like, I don't know, man. Like I've kind of haven't called people out as much because I just don't have the energy where I used to all the time. I would be polite. I'd be like, hey, can you please stop doing that? And most times they'll put it away and probably be mad at me in silent. Or the odd time a person comes back at you and you just, your heart's pounding. You're like, I don't want to do this, but like, I can't focus. Like I really can't. Like it's so distracting especially talking. Like phones I can try to like block out, but like talking during a whole movie, and some people are just oblivious to it, and it's just, and I think that's just the whole thing, right? Like people are so used to watching movies at home, having their phone out the whole time, talking the whole time, pausing it, going, where streaming has given so much more stuff to people at their fingertips, and like everyone can be huge fans of Marvel or a streaming series or something like that. And the, movies, are still, it's still a hugely popular thing to do, even though it's, attendance has been going down or whatever. But look at Top Gun Maverick was a huge hit this year. There's been a ton of movies making a ton of money, and it's just, you're bound to get that when you put 500 people in a room. Like you're bound to get some people who aren't going to be super great. But then on top of that, it's more like it's up to Cineplex and other people to like enforce that stuff. And I don't know how you do it properly, but like if you're not going to do that, at least like work on the presentation side of things. Like I shouldn't have to go like, why is this sound awful, or why is the bulb dim, or like why is the bulb like so dark that I can't even see what's happening, or like why is the masking, why'd you get rid of that? Like at least if a movie was properly masked and the projection's nice and the sound is nice and work on all that stuff, then maybe that other stuff won't bother me as much.
God,
or maybe people would
okay,
care more. Please,
which just
I want to hear
goes
it.
into this. I think it was it was recent. I think it was Doctor Strange, or it was one of the it was a Marvel movie, and it was just recently. So it was that, or I don't even remember what else came out.
There's one every 3 months, so who knows?
So it was a movie, and whatever it was, I was in the theater, right? And the movie starts, and so in the theaters they have the side lights, which they don't turn off until the movie starts, right? And so people
during the trailers and stuff.
They keep those on during the trailers so people can get to their seats and whatever. And then when the movie starts, they typically turn them off. So
which I also hate, but I understand.
But then this movie, whatever it was, I think it was Doctor Strange, they didn't turn them off for the first 5 minutes of the movie. And I'm not even joking, because I went on a Thursday, so all the crazies who want to watch
hardcore people. Yeah.
So I'm not even joking when I say this. The entire theater was yelling at the people in the projection box, and there were some not nice words being said in this, like,
because no one wants to leave the theater either, because then you're gonna miss the beginning of the movie.
Because the movie's still playing, but they just didn't turn off the lights, so everyone was screaming, and it was hilarious. And I hated the fact that the lights were on, but it also was very funny that it was like the entire theater was united in this effort to turn off the light, to get the lights turned off. But it's kind of
It happens too often, dude. Like, I'm that guy who will run out and tell a manager if something's wrong or something like that. Like, and I'll notice it during the trailers, because I'm like, if it's wrong during the trailers, like, it's probably not just gonna fix itself before the movie starts. But there have been times where I go out, I'll be like, hey, do you see what's happening here? Like, the projector's way too dim. Like, I can barely see what's happening, and they're just like, nothing I can do now. I'm like, what do you mean? or it'll be projected in the wrong aspect ratio or something like that, where it's like not only the top and bottom of the screen have screen showing, but the side, so it's just projected into like a rectangle in the middle of the screen where you have like screen all around it. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, sorry, like,
this is the way it
we
is.
can give you a refund. And I'm like, does no one else ever complain? Like, I don't understand.
You're
and it's
weird
like,
in that sense, like,
I know, and I feel like, and that's just it is. Like, people don't notice it, or they don't care.
No, they don't care. That's the thing. They don't care.
And you can't force people to care. So it's like, when it's only a handful of us that are like, hey, can you fix this? Can you fix that? And they're like, well, no one else ever says that. So, like, why am I going to bother? It's like 1 in 100 people that really, really give a shit are going to come out and say something that, if it's more of a hassle for them to do it, or the bulbs they can run out because it's more cost effective, because they're like, we won't change it until it literally goes black or something like that. Like, it's just, that's what they're going to do. It all comes down to like, is this costing us more money if we do this? Like, oh, okay. Do we have to like, 3D is what got rid of masking in a lot of the screens. I know that with like the new screens that they had to install, they just got rid of like masking on everything. And that's something that I always like annoyed me. But when it comes to the other stuff, like sound issues and things like that, I'm like, half the time they're like, no, it's going to cost us to fix that speaker. So no one's really complaining. We're not going to do it. So you're like, all right.
So
okay.
When you watch movies, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you watch movies, how often do you watch movies on your phone?
Very rarely.
Okay, good. That was the right answer.
Yeah, very, very rarely. Like, I'm, if it's something I've seen a bazillion times and I'm like on an airplane, or I have this nice new MacBook Pro and I feel like the screen's better on this, so I don't mind having something on here while I'm working or something like that. But usually if it's a first time watch of something, I have to watch it on a TV or on a movie screen. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I like the aspect ratio on the iPhone because it does, like, it's not perfect, but it's better than like an iPad or a computer screen, where it does fit the screen really nicely, and the screen quality is really good. So when you get like a 4K, HDR movie, it will look good on your phone. Like, I'm not like, but for me, if that's your thing, I guess I'd say like most movies, I would say try to watch on a TV or in theaters. But I can't remember, like, some TV and stuff now. Like, I've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball, which I don't mind watching on my iPad. Like, it's it's not necessary to watch on my TV, although it looks great on my TV, but like it fits my iPad really nicely in the like 4:3 aspect ratio. But yeah, I can't remember like screeners and stuff we get. Even though like the watermarks are awful on TV and things like that, like your email is just sprayed across the center of the screen, and different apps are worse than others, but and on your phone it's weirdly bad. But I don't really watch much on my phone.
Well, 74% of Gen Z people watch stuff on their phone, according to a survey by Preply. And
that doesn't surprise me, man. So like,
it's also a very scary thought, but yes.
I know. And then that's the thing, right? Like, I think their laptops and their phones are the two things that they're watching most of these TV shows. And that's why you can see, like, again, going back to aspect ratios of like what aspect ratio Netflix shows are in and Apple shows are in and stuff like that, right? Like Apple especially knows what their devices are and knows that most people are watching on those. Like, yeah, okay, you can have an Apple TV 4K and stuff like that, but I feel like those are for the hardcore people, where the majority of people now are watching Disney Plus on their phone to watch Doctor Strange even or whatever Pixar movies and stuff like that. And it's, you know, that's what, going back, it all comes full circle though too, of being like, you got to make that experience worthwhile for people. And there are some things, and they think it's like, oh, let's give them 40x, let's
also,
give them
it's the other part of its cost though. That is truly another part of that, is the fact that it costs like $500 to go to a movie, you know. And
yeah, you're not wrong, depending on where you live, right? Especially like if you live in Toronto or a big city, it's going to cost you $15 for what, like a regular movie Canadian, and
it's almost $25 to watch an IMAX movie. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Screen X, and that's why they go like, oh, let's introduce a new gimmick: VIP, Screen X, AVX.
Oh my god, VIP
40X,
is such a waste of space. I've been on this thing for so long that VIP just needs the fact that it's basically empty the majority of the time. Except for like nights when the people who can actually use it, and the fact that they don't open it to people who
just use it as a regular cinema or something like that.
Because the reason is alcohol licensing and being able to serve it in the dark, and you have to have. But either way, government's stupid for making that a thing.
Yeah, I don't love VIP. Like it was like a fun gimmick when it came out. It just like most of these are like IMAX. I really love. Like, I love the IMAX format. It's been around forever. And, you know, I think movies that are shot in IMAX, like with IMAX film cameras and stuff like that.
Like in Humans.
There's nothing quite like it. The ABC show Inhumans, shot with, I think, one of the first digital IMAX cameras.
Was that the biggest waste of money I've ever spent on an IMAX?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I didn't go. Good for you. Like, VIP, I just don't like the cling of forks and knives and the smells of all the food. And like, I love Alamo Drafthouse the couple times I've been there, but then it also, you know, on one side of the things, they take really seriously talking and texting and all that kind of stuff. The projection's all really great. The presentation's wonderful. But then you do have people running hot dogs and hamburgers to people and like going under seats and, you know, bringing people drinks and flagging people down constantly. So I think
the biggest thing is just the seats are nice.
Yeah. And then that's it too, right? Like there's nicer seats. Like I loved Landmark Cinemas, was my cinema of choice because we had one in Whitby when I was living closer to my hometown in Oshawa, and they all have these like really nice leather recliner seats like in every theater, and it made it wonderful. Like things like that are genuinely great when it comes to adding something to want to go to the movies, right? Like I think adding a movie screen that wraps around you and really just turns a widescreen movie into this weirdly warped thing. Like I hate Screen X and like I like all these weird gimmicks and stuff like that. 40X can be fun.
If I want a gimmick where a screen's stretched, I just go to the Science Center. You get the whole dome thing. Right?
The Omnidome thing. Yeah, I know. I wish they showed because I know some in the US show some IMAX movies in the dome screens, but and you'd almost think that Cinesphere was a dome screen, but it's not. It's just a very regular. Well, it's a huge screen like Scotiabank, but man, I don't know. I want them to focus on ways to convince people like, hey, there's better ways than your phone to watch movies, and people still
insanely not cost like prohibitive.
Yeah, Just make the regular screens. I think we're going to get to a point, going again back to another conversation we were having earlier about these companies scooping up other companies and buying them, and Disney owning everything. Like, I think eventually, I've always predicted that, like, these movie theater chains are going to get bought by another company, right? And then it's going to be a part of your membership, whatever it is, whether it's Disney Plus, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Apple. One of these companies is going to buy one of these, theater chains, and then
I swear it almost happened once. Wasn't Disney like 2 years ago or in the middle of the pandemic? Weren't they rumored to be prepared to buy a
like AMC or something like
when
that,
AMC
or like
for sale.
AMC was, and then AMC had that weird thing where everyone's buying their stock and their value went way up. And I think there was the big news was like it wasn't allowed before, where I think something, government wise or something made it legal again for like a movie studio to buy a theater chain. And again, competition is good, and you never want one company to scoop up everything. But I really do think that AMC Cineplex tried selling, and that kind of didn't go very well during the pandemic.
It went horribly.
Yeah, now
to the point
now it went okay for them because they sued them for a lot of money, and they ended up getting it anyway. Yeah, I know.
See, that's the
and I don't know if selling it to Sinistar, whatever it was, or it was a European company, but I don't know if that would have helped at all. I have no idea, but like maybe bringing someone new in who would take a new approach to it would. But like I could see an Apple or an Amazon or Disney buying them and then saying like, if you subscribe to, it's not Disney Plus anymore, it's whatever, it might be just Disney Plus, and then you get Disney movies for free at least, or maybe all, like if you subscribe and there's some revenue sharing there.
But you just ignore that part. What you do is this is the revenue model, okay? So you don't have to, now if you own the theater, you don't have to split it like whatever, it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
Instead, what you got to do is you got to keep all the money. So what you do is you say, you essentially do what they did with Black Widow during the pandemic. You pay us a premium fee if you want to go watch it in theaters before it comes to Disney Plus. They make the money the entire time. They make all the money the entire time. They make it when it goes on streaming. They make it before, and then Disney wins. See?
Yeah, that's all. There's what this whole thing is about. Disney will buy us. They'll buy my show. They'll buy your show. Their quality control, if you look at it, is one of the biggest companies in the world. Like I don't have any doubt that they would charge us up the ass, but then make the experience maybe better. But then what is like better Disneyland. Really? It's just like, yeah, exactly. Like again, and I love Disneyland. I love Disney World. Like I have a blast there. Does it cost way too much money? And yes. And that's probably anything that they buy and then try to make money off of will be like a good experience, but will be very expensive, and they'll keep raising the prices and keep trying to make more and more money off of you. But that's what it all comes down to, money. Again, something that I said, that's what it is. It's we talking about movies, going back to even film criticism, is like this is a art form that relies on, business and money, right? Like it's, you can make a movie as purely art and put it out there. But most of the time you need to make money off of it, whether that's to make your next movie or whether that's to make a company money and you get another job somewhere else or something like that. But like it all comes down to that it is unfortunately a business first and an art form second.
Well, sometimes you make a movie so it can become a tax write-off.
There you go. So it's like
I'm so mad about that.
I know, and like I know we did a whole episode on it where it's just like, how can you all these people? I'm not saying Batgirl would have been like even good.
It could have probably if you released it in theaters, it would have made a profit.
Give it a chance, right? But then like. And again, not saying Batgirl would be art either, but like
it doesn't need to be. People watch Transformers movies. People watch those things.
I know, exactly. So I just it's an interesting business. I love it to death, but it is a business. And again, I love talking about the art part of it. I also like talking about the business part of it. And those are the two sides that kind of clash sometimes. But I think there are some pros and cons to things, like even Disney with Searchlight and stuff like that. Like I always said like, I hope if these big companies are buying up other studios and focusing on things, that they keep those kind of indie labels and different things like that, and do a one for you, one for me kind of thing. Like, just because I think you can't just, I love the MCU. I really do. But like, movies can't just be the MCU. Like, they can't. Like, it's just like, you need that other stuff, and it's that mid-budget and adult-driven dramas and all that kind of stuff that don't necessarily make any money in theaters, that people only want to watch either on streaming or on their phone, or they don't really, go out. I guess Top Gun was a blockbuster, but I mean, like, that kind of mid-range
case which will never be repeated, and which means
I know,
everyone will try to repeat it forever and ever and ever.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Like
It's about to pass Infinity War, so we're gonna get a Top Gun cinematic universe in a sec. But yeah, man, it's wild. But I hope that, nothing changes and everything changes. Like, you still want that wide range of different films and, everything I talked about, foreign stuff, adult-driven stuff, blockbusters. It's all valid to me. Art house stuff, like.
So you're telling me
again,
everything
going back,
has to be a major blockbuster and connected to a cinematic universe.
But unfortunately, when you go think of it as a business, it's like, that's what makes the most money. So that's what everyone tries to make. And if your movie doesn't make, whatever, $100 million, it's like, it's not necessarily a failure, but depending on how much money you spent on it. But it just, I hope we continue.
Get sales too, which help a lot more than, the box office does.
Exactly. And that goes back to those other companies like Apple and Amazon. Like, I think that's where Netflix is fumbling a little bit, because their whole business is just Netflix, right? Apple and Amazon make fucking billions of dollars on other things. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they can kind of throw away money on their film division, which is weirdly interesting and exciting, because they're just like, well, if we lose money on it, whatever. Like, we make
the boys in Lord of the Rings and all this stuff, and you get the good stuff.
I know, and you do, and that's what I mean. Like, you hope that they experiment and do weird things and use their billions of dollars for interesting risks and things like that, and don't just scrap something for a tax base.
To do the Netflix games thing initially could have been such a good idea if they didn't mess it up so badly that it's so stupid and no one uses it.
I heard that like only 1% of their audience was using the game stuff.
I downloaded one game.
I again, you hope that, they were the first ones at the gate, and then everyone learned from them, and then these companies that have other revenue streams that aren't just film came in and started going, okay, we'll just do what you're doing, and we'll use our IP, we'll use our money we make from other things to do all this stuff. And then you kind of see them now, going, oh my gosh, are they going to be, other than HBO Max, but HBO Max is still going to exist on Discovery Plus. But then I'm like,
Discovery's female skewed. HBO Max is male skewed.
Oh God, that was, again, working in, for a streaming service and in marketing and stuff like that, you hear terms like that all the time, and it's like, there's not much you can. Me at my low level community management or social media job, I'm like, you want me to write what in the presentation? And they're like, well, this is from our research. It's 64% of women watch this, and there's all that stuff with the CW network right now that people are kind of laughing at. Yeah, I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. I don't know where you're getting these stats. But
it might just be because like there's such a small audience that the percentage of people who are that old watch it is just it's like, that's why the people that are that old is like their target audience, because they're actual supposed to be target audience just all left, because
Yeah, I always viewed it as
Do you watch Riverdale? Like, do you watch Riverdale?
I did.
Or do you watch it now?
I heard it got real crazy.
Scarlet Witch? I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I saw that part. I watch clips sometimes because I
just see Twitter,
going back to just exactly. So like, and I'm just interested in the industry and everything. Like, I'm interested in everything. I can't watch everything, but like I am interested in everything. So even stuff that I don't watch, I still like going, what's going on in that show? Or like you see people share something even from something you don't watch, or a movie or something you missed and something like that. And I'm like, okay, I need to be in the know, because again, I'll talk about it with you, or I'll talk about it with Eric or someone that I'm like, oh yeah, Riverdale, the world was ending and there's multiple universes and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? okay. That's very different than the show that I remember watching in season 1. But,
I never watched
58-year-olds love it. Yeah, I was like, wait, what are they doing with Archie? I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot, but it didn't last long. But glad people think it's crazy and enjoying it, I guess. But
now, before I let you go, because I know we're getting close to the point, and I know you have a lot of things I'm sure to do, and I don't want to steal all your time away. I have to ask you a question, which is kind of like mandatory to ask, and I'm sure you're being asked this, and I know you've been asked this, and you've probably answered it multiple times before. What's your all-time favorite movie? And you will be judged by this, depending on the answer you give.
Of course, yeah. It's an easy, cop-out answer a little bit for people my age, but it is, I'll pan up here. It is Jurassic Park. There's a poster right there. People watching the video version. My favorite movie of all time is Jurassic Park. I think it is like the quintessential like action adventure blockbuster. I think it is a near perfect kind of movie. It's the movie that made me fall in love with movies. Was born in 1989. That movie came out in 93, right?
Do not ask me the years the movies came out, because I cannot help you.
No, I know. That's an Eric thing too, where like I have a good memory, but also a bad memory. Where I'm like, my favorite movie, I'm like, it was 93, right? Yeah, and I was the perfect age when that movie came out. There's my wife, everyone. You can see. Hi, Nevis. I just fell in love with that movie, and I feel like it still holds up to today. Like, I feel like the special effects in that movie still look better than like 80% of the special effects, maybe 90% of the special effects like today. I love the practical effects, the use of the first use of like CGI in that movie, and I just think like the cast is unbelievable. I just absolutely love Jurassic Park, and unfortunately, they haven't made another one since that first one.
What do you mean? They made Dominion.
I
watched Dominion, right? Okay, I know I said that was the last question, but now that you said Jurassic Park is your favorite,
no, we can go into Jurassic Park.
We need to talk about this. So I was watching Dominion, right? And I had a very scary thought. I'm gonna it's a video. I recorded a video after this. I'm never gonna put it out because I'm too lazy to edit it, because it's a mess, because I was exhausted after I watched this. But like, is there gonna be a point in like 15 years or 20 years when Jurassic World Dominion is looked at as like this nostalgia movie, and people go back and like, try to use cameos of characters from that movie as like to welcome in the new era? And is that not the most horrifying thing?
Chris Pratt comes back like in 30 years or something like that. Again, going back to like, sometimes you got to be negative, especially in this job. And Jurassic World Dominion was one of those times where like I went and watched it in Croatia with my wife and my mom and dad, and I remember going to this really cool like cinema in Zagreb in Croatia, and it was one of those VIP style cinemas where you could drink but you couldn't have food or anything, but like they had a really nice bar outside of the theater, and like I got absolutely wasted watching Jurassic World Dominion, which I thought would help the movie, but it did not at all, because I remember just turning to my wife a bunch of times and being like, this is fucking terrible. It's terrible. And almost to the point where I was shocked, where I was like, these are the references, like Laura Dern showing up in the exact same outfit she wears in the first movie. Why would she be wearing that in 2022? Of like, not that it's like a bad outfit or anything. It's just like the cheapest nostalgia pulls. And then like the way that they use that cast and just how that whole movie kind of plays out is, I don't think people will look at that movie. I don't know what this extended edition is going to be like, but I don't have any plans on watching it. But
I was barely able to sit through the first version of this.
And I'm someone who, like, again, I made a joke about the Jurassic Park sequels. Again, favorite movie of all time. Unfortunately, they've never really figured out how to like capture that again. Like, I think Lost World is partly, okay. Like, I think, minus the San Diego section at the end, like I feel like if you would have ended the movie when the T-Rex is on the ship like roaring, and then the next movie would have been on the mainland with a T-Rex, just make a Godzilla movie or something like that, like it could have been kind of interesting. And then 3, I know some people like 3 with Joe Johnston directing it, but like I don't I have not really a strong opinion either way. And then when World came out, I remember going like when I first saw World, going like, oh, that was okay. That was like pretty good. Like it was basically the first movie again, but like, that's what I wanted. Another theme park, another kind of park movie. And they did that. And then going back and rewatching Jurassic World, I've kind of realized it's not super great. And then, and then when you get Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, you're like, whew, these are real bad. And I don't know. I think those 3 Jurassic World movies won't really be remembered all that much. Like I think,
because like you think about it, like
they could be. Like look at the Star Wars prequels or like things like that. Like remember, there'll always be young kids who will find
is their
something
Jurassic Park
bad.
Going up. Think about there's people who are getting crazy.
I know.
Like, this is Jurassic Park. Does that not horrify you?
Hey. A little bit, but I mean, there was a bunch of crap that I'm still nostalgic about that I watched as a kid that is like
bad. Like this is not like
I know, but some people who were an adult, like at my age or something like that, watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 90s, the live action ones. Like I remember those got bad reviews. Home Alone got bad reviews. Like, there's all this stuff that I'm nostalgic for from my childhood that like I think have some of those things. Home Alone especially is like pushed past some of the negative reviews and become iconic in itself.
Because
but
they
like
just continue to make bad ones afterwards. Like, like Disney tried to make it. It was the most horrible movie I've ever had to watch. I didn't have to watch it.
The new one?
Yeah, the new one. I hated it so much.
Oh yeah, it was and then the Ninja Turtles movies, like I think were that too, where I'm like still it's the Super Mario Brothers movie, which people would say is like objectively awful. But like I remember as a kid loving it because I was a huge video game kid and like a Super Mario Brothers movie. And like even watching it as an adult now with nostalgia goggles on, like I realized that why people would have hated it at the time. But then like I almost love it even more because I'm just like it makes so many weird decisions that like I love it for that. And I don't know if people will view the Jurassic World movies that way. If there's some 5-year-old who saw it and became obsessed with dinosaurs because of it like I would. I hope their parents would then go, hey, watch Jurassic Park.
What about Jared Leto's Joker? What if that becomes the thing of nostalgia?
Yeah.
What if that's Michael Keaton's Batman?
We're already seeing it. Don't bring the Snyderverse people into this because they're already nostalgic for it.
And last question, and then I swear I'm going to let you go. So in all the movies, the one thing that they never did, and I don't understand why in none of the new movies they decided, why did they always try to make bigger dinosaurs? Like in reality, the modern thing is not to make bigger and better; it's to make smaller and better and more efficient. And also, they've never tried to combine a human and a dinosaur before, which is weird to me.
There were those rumors, yeah. There were rumors for Jurassic World or Jurassic Park 3 when they were going to do that, where the whole plot line was going to be them trying to make like dinosaur human hybrids that the army would use. And I know they used a bit of that plot line with Vincent D'Onofrio's character in World, where he was trying to like use the trained raptors to like in the military or whatever. And the bigger thing, like I think it's just a movie thing, dude. Like I feel like that's just one of those things is like, well, how do we outdo? It's like Mission Impossible or something, which Mission Impossible is great. Some of them. I think the newer ones anyways, I think it's one of those franchises that gets better and better. But Jurassic Park going, okay, well, what do we got to do? We got to make a bigger dinosaur because you're seeing this movie. It's a big screen, a big spectacle movie. So like, I think it's like the characters in all of those movies are making very dumb decisions, the scientists down to the people who are running away from the dinosaurs. So like, it's just one of those things where if you're looking at it logically, like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. If you're looking at it from a movie standpoint, you're like, okay, these are big, dumb action movies where we just need a big dinosaur to eat people or but even the raptors, which were smaller, people really dug. So you could have done something interesting.
But they don't
there.
try to make them big, dumb movies. Otherwise they would be better. If their goal is to make
I
them
agree.
Big, dumb,
they take them too seriously almost, right? Yeah. And that's like, if they turned into Fast and Furious, like I'm all for it. Like make them the dumbest, biggest, silliest movies possible. But like, even if you look at Dominion, it takes itself way too seriously. Like it could have easily gone into the Fast and Furious territory, but and it really should have crossed it over with that. Bring Vin Diesel like into like Universal owns them both. Like I'm all for that. Like, I don't know, just get real dumb with stuff and like have fun with it. I think have fun with it is the key word, right? Like when you bring in human cloning and like locusts and stuff like that, I'm like, why the hell?
I didn't understand.
This is a Jurassic Park
It didn't
movie.
make
Like,
sense. It's
why?
Yeah.
You have Laura Dern and Sam Neill running around learning about like giant locusts, and I'm like, who? Why would you think anyone cares about this? And like, and then the human clone girl, like, I get that you brought in cloning in that first movie, so I guess that's naturally where humans would go with it because it's just what humanity does. But like, it's just like, why do you need to incorporate that into the movie? I'm like, I don't. You bring her back for this movie, and I'm like, and the ending of Fallen Kingdom, don't get me started. Like when she just releases them all, and you're just like, everyone else is just cool with it. Everyone's like, yeah, all right, yeah, that makes sense. You're sad, you're a clone. All right, the dinosaurs are also like that. So press a button, release them to the wild, and you're like, that's how you're gonna do that. Like the idea is, look at something like Matt Reeves' like Planet of the Apes movies, and I know he only directed 2 out of 3 of them, but whatever. I just consider it
they're all his.
But yeah, and like the concept of that like sort of post-apocalyptic like animals are running the show kind of thing was done so well in those movies. But that's could have been what Dominion could have been, right? Like having dinosaurs, roam the earth again and like live with us is such a cool idea on paper. It's like, oh yeah, it's the natural progression of where those movies would go. That totally makes sense. It's just like how it's executed. Like, that whole drive-in sequence that they released before the movie, I thought was pretty cool. And like, there are some cool ideas there. It's just like when you bring back that cast and, good for them for getting a paycheck. I'm all for that. Like just take Universal's money and run. Like it's just, but you feel so sad when you love that first movie so much. You're just like, man, I was so excited to see Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill and Laura Dern all together again. And then you're like, oh yeah, Chris Pratt's here. And I love Bryce Dallas Howard, but like her role in those movies is just not great. Like I like her as a director almost more than an actress, but like, I
like Chris Pratt not on the screen, if that's allowed. I don't know.
Yeah, I've talked about that guy, so many times where I just don't think he's like
he's not good at acting.
Guardians. No, yeah. It's like Guardians made him this like action star or like this leading man. And I'm like, dude, you were good when you were like the chubby dude on Parks and Recreation or like
as Mario. Wait till that's going to be cinema.
I you know what, dude? Like, I actually can't wait for that movie. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I can't.
You get the nostalgia again of like Mario. I guess I don't even know like what is that movie? Like, I'm more interested in Barbie than I am in that movie because Barbie actually looks like it's gonna be weird and
Barbie looks great. I can't wait. Oppenheimer, Barbie, double bill. It's gonna be fantastic.
That's gonna be amazing.
The 2 polar opposite movies.
But will they be polar opposites?
They're auteur driven. I think you could consider Greta Gerwig an auteur now. So like auteur driven, big Hollywood movies. I don't know. Like I have no idea what Barbie's gonna be. I can't wait. Like that's I think the thing. Like you kind of know what Oppenheimer's gonna be.
Yeah, you really don't know because
I guess you think because you're like, oh, it's actual about a real dude and about the dude who invented the nuclear bomb.
The hunches are gonna do a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood type thing with that, and they're gonna basically like completely warp history.
Right. I think that actually does make sense. Like do historical fiction on it rather than just
history's
the actual.
Boring. Let's be honest. Like
I agree, dude. When I love Dunkirk, but like I think that was the one movie. I didn't like it really the first time I saw it, and it was just not what I wanted to see. Like I liked his sci-fi stuff, right? Like I liked his sci-fi action movies or his Batman movies. So when he was like, "Oh, I'm making a war movie in airplanes and stuff like that," and I'm like, "Oh,
terrible." Cool. I remember every time I go to a theater, I'd see it, and it's that same thing that the one guy running, and I hated that trailer so much it pissed me off every time I went to a movie, and I was like, I ended up watching it like well after it came out, but I just.
Oh yeah, it's it's probably lower on my Nolan list. Although he's kind of like with Tenet and stuff too, like which is a sci-fi big movie. I didn't really love either, but Greta Gerwig doing Barbie too, and those 2 movies coming out on the same day, I think is really awesome and like probably one of the big days of 2023 at the movies. So yeah, Mario, have no idea what that's going to be like either, but next year should be fun, but we don't have to deal with Jurassic World Dominion anymore. So
And
There's that.
well, it's funny actually, and I swear to God, last thing, I'm sorry.
No, dude, it's okay. Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
so bad. I'm taking so much
Keep
of your
going.
time. But
I'll cut you off if I have to go.
The last 2 episodes of this series, there was a director who said Christopher Nolan needs to just be told to stop doing the stuff he's doing because he's just kind of gone M. Night Shyamalan with his stuff. And then literally the next episode, which came out yesterday, when we're recording this, not when people are watching this, but we had a director say Christopher Nolan is the Stanley Kubrick of this generation. So,
I think both things can be true, right? Like I really do. And that here, I'm going to bring it full circle. So this is all perfect. It all comes back to someone's opinion, right? Like it really, I think both things can be very, very true. And I almost agree with both statements. So it's like, I really do agree with both of those things, even though they feel like they shouldn't work together. And I think that's the magic of, the movies and talking about them, and from the actual stuff we see to what's coming out next year to the news to how we see movies and things. It all comes down to just how do you feel about it. And it is your opinion on something. I think your opinion matters the most. And I don't think that that's selfish, but then also be open to other people's perspectives as long as everyone's not a jerk about it. And if you want to do it professionally, just try. Start a podcast, write a blog. If you really are interested and want to do it, you can go to film school and stuff like that. But I wrote while I was in film school and things like that. And it's just put it out there. It might be crappy, it might be great, but then just work on it and keep doing it and be yourself. I think a lot of the times people just want to impress other people sometimes too, of how smart I am, how much I know about this movie or this thing. And it's just I don't know, I think if you want people to listen to you or want people to care about your opinion, is be yourself and back up your opinion, but also just share those things and be true to yourself.
Don't be a contrarian, because what happens is you end up writing a 1,000-word essay in a night to prove someone wrong about prove to someone why Civil War is bad. That's just what happens. I did that because I wanted to be right, and it was a terrible waste of time.
Dude, I've been there. I told you about the Avatar stuff. I was that guy too, man.
I love Civil War, but I had to be right, so I had to write 1,000.
It's also fine to do that. Again, it goes back to the don't be a jerk about it, right? Again, you can be critical of things. You can talk about why something, doesn't work for you. Again, I think it goes back of why it doesn't work for you. And, again, it just goes back to, that's your opinion, man. If you think Civil War is overrated, you can write that article. It's just and that's a good headline, right? We go back to negativity is stuff that gets clicks and stuff like that. We talked about the rehearsal on the last episode of the podcast, and I'm all right, what's a headline? And I'm all right, I'm going to put, is the rehearsal fake? It's I don't think it's fake, or partly I think it is, but I think that's what's the genius of it. But it's just those headlines can still get you attention, but then be nuanced in your opinion and back up your opinion. Or again, it goes back to that keyword, opinion. There's no objective right or wrong in film criticism, especially. Is just talk about movies.
And on that note, thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to do this. And I know we went so long, and I appreciate you.
No, I'm used to going long, man. If you've ever watched or listened to one of my shows, Eric and I will talk for 2.5 hours. So 1 hour and 20 minutes, breezy. I know. I you know how many times I told someone, oh yeah, even these interviews I've said, 30 to 45 minutes. 90% of them go over that. So that's always fun. But again, it was so much fun. Thank you for coming on and agreeing to talk. And thank you for having me.
Your show is linked in the description, and probably whatever the things with the pop-ups on YouTube or whatever. And also your social media handles underneath your picture right now, so people can go follow you on Twitter. I know.
At Matt Rorabeck, go see my crappy opinions on Mad Max.
Amazing opinions. They're wrong, but they're amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
They can be amazing opinions being wrong. And we gotta definitely do this again, maybe at some point.
Dude, hit me up. I got time. I mean, I'm busy for TIFF for the, TIFF is going to be the busiest. It's always our busiest time. So like Untitled Movie Reviews will have reviews of an incredible amount of movies coming out of the festival this year. And then, but yeah, you should come on our show too. So you should do that. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's so great to talk to you. I'm so glad you could do this. And everyone, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, follow us on social media, all of us. It's all on the page or underneath or whatever. People don't know what to do at this point, but I feel like I have to say it. So thank you again, and we'll see you all next time. I don't know when this is coming out, so I don't know. I can't say next week.
I've also been there. See you, everyone.